Can you hit the lights? Thank you. All right. We're going to take a couple of minutes because we have some latecomers. It's okay. We're glad you're here. So we've already done this, but I'm going to make you guys do it. So I want you to say your name, where you work, what your role is, how long you've been there, and so let's see, dig deep in your pockets and find a coin, that money, not credit cards, and look at the date on the coin and tell us maybe something that happened the year on the coin, maybe something personal or an event that happened that year. So we have one, Doug, you're going to play too, and 3 people here that have to participate in this. Who wants to go first? You want? Okay.
I don't have a point on me though.
Oh, you don't? Here, let me see.
Yeah, I got plenty.
I know, you weeded them out, didn't you?
Never think I got money.
I know, right? This thing called money.
You can dig through till you find a year you like too.
Oh, yeah.
Don't tell me you weren't.
You got coins?
I got coins.
Not
You
a
got
big
coins
one.
for a loan? I don't have coins.
She has to be a penny.
Yeah, these are obsolete, these things here.
I'll go get my glasses.
All right.
I'm Stacy Wright, I work at Gainesville Village.
Okay.
Care coordinator there. I've been there, actually I've only been there since August. So
Oh,
not very long.
okay.
About a year, I'm Wait. Vision's not that bad. 2014.
Okay.
That was the year I got divorced.
That's funny. Well, I hope that's going well.
It is.
All right, cool. All right, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you can go ahead and make a name tent. I think there should be some cardstock at your station. If not, you can steal that one there. Yeah. All right. How about you, sir?
My name is Chris Bailey. I'm a forensic case manager for SMA
Okay.
in Daytona Beach. And this is why it took me a little long to get here.
Well, you got some colleagues here today.
Do you have kids?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There you go. I gotta use something. Okay, let's see. 2002. I was in high school, and there's no laughing. And I think I got broken up with.
In high school?
2002, yes.
Was it traumatic?
Yes, I hurt my
Oh,
feelings
okay.
a little bit,
All
yes.
right.
But I moved on.
You moved on apparently, because you had kids now.
There you
and all
go.
that. Yeah, okay. Welcome, guys. And I'm going to bring the sign-in sheet around so you can sign in. Doug, how about you?
2014,
Well, tell them who you are. Some people don't know who you are.
I'm sorry.
I know you think you're famous
No,
and
no, no,
stuff.
no, no. My name is Doug Adkins. I'm the executive director at the East Spring Village up in Hilliard. I've been taking care of people with serious mental illness for the last 30 years. And I'm the director at the Phoenix program, which is a forensic step-down program that we've been operating since 2007. So in 2014, the big highlight of that year was I went to Jerusalem for the first time.
That's so cool.
And once you've been to Israel, once you've been to Jerusalem, you understand why Jerusalem's the center of the world. You just absolutely get it once you're there. So that's the big deal.
Oh, that is.
It is
Wow.
the big deal.
Yeah. Well,
So.
thank you guys for being here. All right, so let's move on. We are talking about competence to proceed. So just some highlights about competency. The test is functional, so it's not based on diagnosis or treatability, does not require diagnosis, but because of the way the system is set up, we need a diagnosis. We need what will treat the diagnosis And the diagnosis has to be, or the competency has to be linked to a diagnosis and treatability, because we need to know how to set up treatment to restore competency. The test is focused on capacity, not actual knowledge. So does that person have the capacity to be competent? So every once in a while, we'll get somebody that maybe they have a mental illness, but we believe they are, faking it, or some folks, they will exaggerate their symptoms to be incompetent. Now, what would be the benefit of being incompetent for someone? They don't go to prison, so they stay there. They got 5 years to stay it out, right? What other things? They get to see like nice people like you that will like treat them super nice, and because they're ill and they're in treatment and stuff, so that would be a benefit, right? So some people will feign their symptoms, exaggerate, or fake their symptoms to be in the system. So the test focuses on capacity, not actual knowledge. So if you suspect that someone is malingering or they're faking, but you think they are competent, someone can tell the court or write a report to the court and say, hey, I think they're faking, but I think they have the capacity, and that's enough. And we even use this, I've seen several cases where the person just doesn't talk, and they think that's gonna cut it. But usually, someone will talk back at the jail, you know what I mean? They can't hold that forever, and so that's kind of like doing some investigation. Are they functioning in other areas of their life that you think they have the capacity, they're just not doing it? There's another area that I think this falls under too, is like sometimes they just don't know the legal system. It's hard. Like if you've never been in the legal system and you get arrested, that's different too. They have the capacity, they just need to learn the system. So I've had a couple cases where the person had a mental illness, but they were teenagers charged with adult charges, and actually went to the high school and did competency. And really they weren't incompetent because they had the ability, but I just kind of did it as a favor because I just wanted to help them through the system. But they have the ability. And so those are pretty quick, and really they're not considered I2P if they have the capacity. Yes?
I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question, but we had a client who kind of went through this, tried to feign symptoms, all that, was found incompetent, found competent at various times. But I think he also declined his medication with the intent of making himself more symptomatic, so he would be found incompetent. So I know in the hospital, the judge can come in and can mandate things. In the jail system, when you have somebody who is prescribed and is supposed to be taking meds, but is in a case like this, is there a legal implication there if they refuse their meds, or how does that work?
Were you doing competency, like, were you doing jail competency?
We were not. And
Okay.
I mean, he was arrested and in jail, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of tricky. Typically, the jails will not involuntarily medicate, even though the judges can order that in the jail. I know Judge Ferrero does.
The judge
They
get
still-
forced, then you get forced.
Yeah, so, and typically, a lot of places, the judge will just talk to them and, say, hey. Also, some of the techniques that we used to use is like, kind of talk, if you think they're malingering, they think they're getting out of something. When I would like tell them what state hospital is really like. You know what I mean? It is not a picnic. It is high security. You're gonna be put with folks that are really, really ill. It's like telling them that might like change their mind. You know what I mean? Like, what's the end game? I would try those techniques because the jail, they're not gonna involuntarily medicate. So but if they get out, then it could be court ordered, and they'll have to. And then a state hospital, they have The degree of impairment must be significant, and this is the statute which, so if you're an attorney, you're gonna interpret that all kinds of ways, because it's kind of a vague, it's a vague word. Significant, what does that mean? To us, it's probably a higher bar than maybe an attorney. Depends, you know. Finally, the conclusion is based on criminal legal factors. So it's all criminal legal. It's not civil competency at all. All right? Now, Florida has adopted these 6 ITP criteria, and folks have to pass these 6 things. And I think we look for probably at least, you know, having some impairment of 2 or more, basically, but we've seen people in the system with that are deficient on maybe 1. So you've probably seen these. I'm going to go through them all, actually, singly. Appreciation of charges. Does a person have the ability to know their charges? Can you describe the charges that they said you did? Are your charges misdemeanor or felon? So they need to know how serious they are, right? And I would, you know, if you're doing competency restoration or if you're working with somebody, kind of judge it on their level. So it doesn't mean they have to verbatim spout out what they're charged with, because I've read some charges and then their arrest report, and I'm like, they're not even matching. But they have to know what they're allegedly do. Now, how can you help somebody know what their charges are? Get the arrest report, read it yourself. So having all that information will help. You know, if they have a good idea of what it is, then they would pass this first one. Appreciation of possible penalties. So if they were charged with the offense, what kind of punishment would they get? So possible punishments, can you explain what probation is? So if they know all these things, they can get jail, they can go to prison. Now, for those with some criminal history, they may need to know, like, oh, scoring your points. Because you had all this history, you may go to prison even though this is a 3rd-degree felon, right? So it requires you guys to know what that means as well. Okay. Understanding the adversarial nature of the legal process. So they need to understand that, yeah, the criminal justice system is punitive. That's the bottom line. It's punitive. And this is the section where they need to know the roles of these players. So the judge, what does the judge do? Don't be shy.
Well, they make the final rule.
They make the final rule based on what? Facts from doctors, testimony, facts from the defense, facts from the state, right? It's really that, facts from defense, facts from the state, even if it's witnesses and it's collateral information. So the jury, you know, in this part it does say jury, but how many go to jury trial? Barely any. So I wouldn't concentrate too much on that for them knowing what the jury is. The defense, they need to know the defense attorney, what they do. They're on your side. You need to work with them because they are going to build your case. The state attorney, what do? They are on the other side. They work for the state. They're going to try to bring up all evidence against you. The witness, understanding what witnesses are, character witnesses, eyewitnesses, anything like that. Judge and jury are impartial. Can they explain what a plea bargain is, and do they know the 4 pleas you can enter in court? Does anybody know the 4 pleas? I know you
Not
do.
guilty, not guilty,
No contest,
not
not
guilty,
guilty,
guilty.
guilty. One more. Not guilty by reason of insanity. So keep that in mind, because not guilty by reason of insanity, you have to be competent because it's a plea. So someone may be incompetent, go through the system, become competent, and be eligible for not guilty by reason of insanity. It's a plea, but they have to be competent to get to where they're at a level to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Does that make sense? Melissa, you're like, what?
They have to be able to understand the consequences of that plea.
Well, they have to be competent because, so in the legal system, you can't proceed with the case at all unless they're competent. So you can't even get there to determining not guilty by reason of insanity because of the plea. You can't get there. So it actually convolutes a lot of cases because sometimes we feel like, well, they were not guilty by reason of insanity at the time of the crime, but now they're incompetent, and all this time goes by, and as time goes by, you lose evidence, witnesses, so, but, all right. Capacity to disclose to an attorney really boils down to, can they work with their attorney? Have you met them? Can you trust them? Can you state who is involved with your offense? So can they speak with their attorney about their case at all? So what have we heard? We've heard, oh, they're the public pretender, and they are against me, and so how can you help somebody kind of work with their attorney? Because the bottom line, they're gonna have to, you know? How can you help them? You guys are too quiet. I'm sure you're not this quiet.
Helping them to appreciate what's the alternative.
Like,
If you're not cooperative, you
mhm.
don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, this can go on for a long time. Yeah, so. Well, also, like preparing them too. I think people get stuck with working with their attorney because so many, they wanted like the attorney to be their therapist. Attorneys don't do that. You know, some clients will like talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So help them like, hey, your attorney's for your legal stuff only. So let's prepare. You don't think your attorney's working with you. Let's like do some role playing. Hey, pretend I'm your attorney. Let's prepare. What do you want to ask him? And maybe prepare that client for, you know, that you don't need to tell everything to your attorney. These are the things that your attorney's probably going to ask. So, and I know it depends on the attorney too. Some of the attorneys don't have any patience and they won't like meet them in the middle. Yes.
Sometimes what we have our staff do is we have a good relationship with the public defender's office. Once you think that they're close to competency, we'll set up a meeting with you, client, and the attorney all together because they might trust you, and if you're there, they might be a little more open to working with their attorney. So we've seen that
Yeah.
very successful.
That's a good idea. Ability to manifest appropriate courtroom behavior. So can they behave in court? What do they need to do if they need to ask a question? What happens if they're disruptive in court? What is contempt of court? Will you continue to take your medication? Can I address their medications? And what can they do if they don't get their medications? And ability to testify relevantly. I think this one, for me, in my opinion, is kind of all the others, you know, because they're not going to go to a jury trial, and most defendants don't get up there and testify. So it encompasses a lot of things. So let's go back and get the list. Which ones do you think clients get stuck on? understanding the adversarial nature. So they think that nothing's gonna happen to them. Okay, all right. Any others?
Trusting the attorney.
Trusting the attorney, yeah, big one, trusting the attorney. So maybe have some techniques up your sleeve, like what would you do to trust your attorney? And, you know, even folks that are not incompetent, that you're trying to help through the system, it's important to know these things, is you want them to get through the system as quickly as possible. So if they, you know, if they verbalize things that indicate they're stuck on some of these things, have some things up your sleeve, some techniques that help them get past it. So, I think what, Erica, what do you think? What do they get stuck on? The attorney one? Appropriate courtroom behavior sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've seen where they will just talk and incriminate themselves and then the defense attorney lets them,
Yes.
right? Because the defense attorney, and we'll talk about defense attorneys, but the defense attorneys typically want their client to be incompetent. Why would they want that? For leniency.
Yeah.
They get a softer sentence, not sentencing, but like they get to good treatment
Say
and
they need the treatment.
maybe they need the treatment. But some defense attorneys want them to get through the system, so there's different views. Basically, the defense attorney wants the least restrictive alternative, which is some defense attorneys think that that's no treatment at all, even though your client may need treatment. And because, you know, in some defense attorneys' eyes, there are no, if they get out on conditional release with you guys, that is not, to them, is not least restrictive, it's like probation. So you have different views, so just keep that in mind, you know, and because you have to respect that with the attorneys, like what their views are. All right, so let's move on. Okay. We're gonna talk about commitment, and this is commitment to a forensic